Hey, before we jump into today's episode, I want to share something special with you. As 2024 draws to a close, have you started thinking about creating your business plan for 2025? Is it even on your radar? Well, it should be. 2025 is closer than you think. Planning your year is one of the most important activities you can do as a business owner because it helps you set the overall direction of your business and determine the actions you must take to achieve your goals. I know that the idea of planning your year can feel overwhelming and honestly hard to quote unquote find the time to do it, despite how badly you want to gain clarity, set goals, strategize, create a business plan, and determine the exact actionables to take your business to the next level. Well, good news. I want to help you take the guesswork out of how to plan your year and rid you of the overwhelm that often accompanies strategic business planning. That's why I've decided to host a VIP business planning event in Las Vegas, and you're invited.
Viva Las Vegas! Viva Las Vegas!
During this intimate 2-day event, November 2nd and 3rd, I will personally help you plan your entire year over a weekend. You'll get 2 days of strategic business planning with me, a business blueprint, strategic planning workbook, all meals, including a special dinner and show on the world-famous Las Vegas Strip. You'll walk away with a clear, actionable plan for your business and a literal blueprint for 2025. Head on over to amberdelagarza.com/business planning. Again, that's amberdelagarza.com/business planning to get additional details and join me in Las Vegas.
You are listening to Small Business Straight Talk with your host, Amber Delagarza. Amber is a sought-after coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives small business owners the straight talk on productivity, time management, business systems, leading your teams, strategic decision-making, and mindset. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber Delagarza, the productivity specialist.
Welcome and thank you for listening to the Small Business Straight Talk podcast. Today is episode 343, Persistent Marketing, the Pathway to Profits with Trewin. If you're a small business owner who wants to learn effective business strategies, improve time management, and elevate productivity to maximize profit, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. Today, you get to meet our guest, Trewin. Troy's passion is helping other owners grow their small business with ease and live the lifestyle they signed up for. Since late 1999, Troy has started and grown 16 small businesses with 30-plus business partners in 3 countries in technology, alcohol, retail, e-commerce, accommodations, food, and online education. Currently, Troy chairs 3 of the 5 boards he sits on and provides coaching to a handful of CEOs and founders of interesting, fast-growing businesses in various sectors. The areas of expertise he brings to a business and board include strategy, management, technology, and finance. In 2004, Troy founded Grow a Small Business Community, which has a weekly business podcast, over 500 episodes, and is in the top 50,000 or 1.5% of all podcasts. In today's conversation with Troy, we are going to be diving into how Troy divides time and energy among his 7 businesses, the main challenges Troy's overcome with marketing those businesses, 3 key marketing principles for small business owners, what marketing data to track and how frequently to analyze it, tips for continuing to show up and keep trying marketing strategies, and so much more. Before we dive in and meet Troy, I want to invite you to take my Next Level Business Owner quiz. If you are growing a business and you want to know what to be focusing on right now to get your business to the next level, then take this short 3-minute quiz to find out what's most holding you back. Once you take the quiz and find out what area in your business you should be focusing on, you will get a curated, personalized playlist of podcast episodes from the Small Business Straight Talk podcast. And in those episodes, you will have resources and strategies that you can implement immediately to take your business to the next level. Hit pause now and head on over to amberdelagarza.com/quiz. And now let's meet our guest and get to the straight talk. Welcome to the podcast, Troy. How are you today?
I'm very well, Amber. Thank you. And thanks for coming on our podcast mid-July 2024.
Yes, which is was such a great honor. And when I was on your podcast, I had shared with you that my biggest challenge in my business was marketing. There's so much trial and error and experimenting. And that gave us the idea to have you on to talk about marketing and also specifically talking about how to stay consistent with marketing activities. But before we jump into that conversation, I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself we didn't hear in your official bio.
Yeah, well, I started my first business in late 1999. So I started two internet companies, a web design development company and an e-tailer at the same time. So as in the gold mining rushes, I went panning for gold with the e-tailer, but most people made their money selling the pan. So I also mitigated the risk and started a web design development company, which is still going and growing now. I've got about 100 team members in Melbourne, Australia. And from there went on and bought or started several other businesses. I think I'm up to 16 now with over 30 business partners in 3 countries. So I've seen a lot on the business frontier, and I really love small business. As you would know, it generates a lot of jobs in the economy, and it's a lot of fun. If, as you talk about with your clients, you have a good handle on your time management and put boundaries in place to make sure that you're balanced and you're not, working too much, and you're keeping those relationships, particularly outside of work. So that's something that I've really had to work on the last 10 years in particular.
Yeah, well, I'd actually like to ask you a couple of questions about that before we jump into marketing. How do you budget or balance your time amongst so many businesses that are running? Sounds like they're often running to the races. So how do you divide your time and energy among those businesses?
Yeah, well, I'm down to 7 businesses now that I still own. I guess the answer really is finding great people and putting them in place. There's only 2 of those 7 businesses that I actually work in at the moment. 3 actually. We've just launched another online training business for people thinking of starting a craft brewery in Australia. So it's systems, but particularly getting A players in the key roles, especially the leadership role of the business. So that is really important. And on a personal front, I'm extremely organised and delegate a lot. So that's helps me keep my hours, within reason and live a good life.
Yeah. And these businesses, do you start them because you have this interest and you just want to see it turn into a business? What's your decision maker on whether you're going to start another business?
Well, we believe that the small business strategic planning particularly should start with the numbers. So the first thing we do is we look at the business model, put it into a spreadsheet to see, is this a business that could provide a reasonable return? And especially for the hours that we need to commit to it, if we need to work in that business. So that's where we start, is looking at the numbers to make sure that we don't have a faulty business model and we're not just doing this because it's a bit of fun or it's a shiny object that we want to chase after. It has to be a commercial business model behind it.
Yeah. So is it true that you have an idea or an interest and then you run it through your Excel sheets and your models to see if there's an open gap in the marketplace and if it's profitable?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a market in the gap and there's a gap in the market. So there's not too many competitors, for example. Absolutely, that's the first place we start. And otherwise, we can just sink a lot of time and money and resources into something that is just going to go sideways and not actually provide a return. So doing that due diligence up front, that's something I've learned over time. I certainly didn't start my business career in that method, but it's something I've learned through trial and error over the years.
Of course. All right. So what are some of your key challenges that you've overcome with owning this many businesses regarding marketing?
Well, marketing is a corner that I've really been fascinated with, particularly in the last 10 years. When I started in late 99, I had some friends in Sydney. They started an IT security company, like a cyber security company, I guess you'd call it these days. And one of those business partners, one of those friends, really focused on the brand and the marketing side of things, whereas the other one was the technical founder and did all the speaking and leading the team, developing the team. And I saw them grow their business, and they sold out and at quite a nice price. So came to understand from that the value of investing in marketing and building a brand. And then in the last 10 or so years, I've swung a lot of my professional development into the marketing corner to get better at marketing. Excuse me, to get better at marketing all my businesses.
Yeah. And so what has been your experience as you have mentored or trained other small business owners? You said you have a huge passion for small business owners with regards to marketing. What do you see that they're not doing well? And what tips do you have for small business owners who are trying to improve our marketing and be consistent?
We work with many different types of businesses. So the main way that we differentiate who we want to work with are those with 5 to 30 team members, but they can be any industry, anywhere in the world. And on the marketing front, I found I was repeating the same key messages. These 3 principles in marketing. So we wrote an ebook called Marketing Funding Flywheel. So it would, one, help more small business owners and sooner, and stop me having to repeat myself all the time. And those 3 principles are, for marketing, track the right data, test, and then test again. And the third one, a lot of business owners haven't really come across this concept, which is the LTV to CAC ratio, so the lifetime value to customer acquisition cost ratio. And that can be applied pretty much to any type of business. And once you track your numbers and you've been testing, you can see what marketing channels work or activities, and stay within a 3-to-1 or 5-to-1 ratio of the LTV to CAC, then you've actually set yourself up a money printing machine. So if it's 3-to-1, for every $1 you put into that marketing campaign or activity, then you get $3 of gross profit back. So after that CAC, that's effectively $2 gross profit. So you're printing money effectively.
Okay. And what marketing avenues have you found work best to get those rates?
Well, one of the big ones, again, that in the ebook we go on to talk about, there's over 40 pages of tips and tools in there. But one of the big ones that I think a lot of business owners dismiss is email marketing. So the money is in the list, as I like to say. The DMA, or the Direct Marketing Association in America, publish numbers each year to show what the return is on each channel. And email marketing, for every $1 you put into it, you get $44 back. The next best return is SEO at $22, and then social ads around $20. So there's a lot of value sitting in people's email lists. One of our business owners that went through our business transformation program recently, they've got a craft brew pub here in Hobart, Australia, where I live. And I asked the owner, how big's the email list? And she said 2,500. They'd been going for almost 2 years at that point. And I asked, how often do you send emails to your list? And she just stared into the camera. And then I asked, since you started 2 years ago, how many emails have you sent to that list? And sheepishly, she said 3. I said, right, well, that's the first place we need to start. And she started emailing that 2,500 list, which has now grown due to other initiatives we suggested. And the business, even these hard economic times, has grown 10% in that time. We looked at the 3 months to 31 May compared to the previous year, and she puts that mainly down to just getting that weekly email out to let people know what's on at the brew pub, and also to keep the brand front of mind. So I think that's a really good piece of low-hanging fruit that business owners can activate pretty easily, is to email your list more than what you think you should, because I know we're fearful of people unsubscribing, but email list churn is not bad, because if people don't want to hear about you, they're not the right clients for you or customers.
Yeah, I like to clean out our list a lot too. And you just let them go and let some new people in that actually want to hear it. when I think of writing to my email list and your open rates are low, I'm like, that doesn't make me want to write again. So I keep my list scrubbed with people that want to open and read the emails that I do send.
Yeah.
I am curious. So we are both podcasters, and I use my podcast to build my email list, but I also get a lot of my clients, pretty directly from the podcast, but it's a long-term relationship. So someone's not going to generally not listen to 1-3 episodes. They're going to listen for a while, build a relationship, and then reach out. How do you track that data? So I guess I'm testing you to turn the tables on me. So for me,
Yep.
I track all the expenses for the podcast separate on my P&L with regards to labor and then hard costs to keep the podcast up and going. But how do you track the podcast turn, or do you say, oh, the real goal is to get them on the email list, nurture them there, and then track those numbers?
Yeah, we track how people heard about us when they go through our business transformation program, for example. There's another Australian podcaster, I heard her say that she actually tracked it right down to the dollar. She found that for every hour she invested in doing her podcast, she was earning $8,500 because the medium is so strong in that know, like, trust. People get to know you, they like you, and they trust you. And you're right, you need quite a few episodes for people, but they get to understand your style. And I've had people reach out. One client actually that went through our program reached out and said, I listened to 2 episodes of your podcast a day, because we had, I think, 300 recorded at that point. When he was in the gym, he'd go through 2 episodes a day. And, we need help. You're exactly the type of business coach that we know can steer us through the next stage of growth. And they went from 2.5 full-time equivalent team members to 14 in about 18 months, using all the advice that we've stuffed into our courses, part of our business transformation program, because we find ourselves repeating the key messages 80% of the time. So that way, putting them into those courses allows us to help more business owners and faster, rather than just one-on-one repeating ourselves the same key messages, because we see it in most businesses. They don't delegate. As you and I were talking on our podcast, we're control freaks, business owners, so you've got to learn to delegate and push down to your team, because A players want more work, more challenging work, interesting work, and owners need to get to a stage where they trust their team. Firstly, you've got to hire A players, make sure they've got a great team, and secondly, let go and get out of the way.
Yeah. I want to go back to your flywheel, the 3. So it's data, trial, right? Like I use the word experiment, but trial, and then the ratio. So with regards to the data, how frequently do you recommend someone to be tracking that data? Like, is it monthly? Is it weekly? How often should a business owner be looking at that information?
Yeah, well, great timing. I've literally last week just finished putting together a marketing scorecard for our program. So we've got in that sheet, weekly numbers we think they should track and monthly numbers. And then it summarises a handful of those key numbers on the scorecard. But things like on the weekly front, things like number of visitors to your website, number of people you've got that took your lead magnet to get onto your email list, for example, and what percentage of that over the traffic to the site. So tracking some of those key numbers and always working on them. If you see those numbers are not where your target is, you need to, work those numbers up. So there's that. There's the bounce rate on the site. There's the time on the site. All these indicators will tell you where in your funnel you need to focus on. You can find benchmarks out there for your industry. If you listen to industry podcasts, for example, or Google some numbers, you can see, right, best practice is at least 2 minutes on the site, bounce rate under 40%, finding those numbers and putting them into your sheet as goals, and then tracking those numbers, obviously, and any of those that are off, that's what you need to focus on over the next 90 days or quarter.
Yeah. And do you find that the second phase about trial and error and experimenting to be frustrating for business owners on this marketing journey?
I certainly do, because I think most of us suffer from shiny object syndrome. We get bored easily and we want to move on to the next thing, but you've got to have extreme discipline and stick with it. and give it a quarter or two to test. You should be testing at least one new marketing initiative each quarter, but you've got to be patient and collect enough data to be able to make an informed decision. And I think that's, part of the problem we get. A new marketing idea comes out, you watch a YouTube or a TikTok, and off you run. But you haven't let the other initiatives run enough course for you to be able to make a decision whether it's actually working or not based on the data.
Yeah. You know what I find is the business owners are talking to each other and they're like, I did X, Y, and Z and it worked for me. And then they try it and it doesn't work out of the gate. And they're like, what am I doing wrong? And then they're off to the next thing that something worked for somebody else or somebody else's business. Or like you said, YouTube, social media, another podcaster they're listening to. But the discipline part, for me, it was actually a great relief when I started using the framework of experimenting, because I started on the flip side. I was incredibly disciplined, but I was attached to the outcome. So I would stick with stuff longer than I should have that wasn't getting results, thinking I just need to be more consistent. I just need to dig in more. And when I framed it around experimenting, I was like, I'm not attached to the outcome. Whether this works or doesn't work, all I can control is how I show up, which is what we were going to, specifically talk about today, is how to consistently show up. What tips or strategies do you have for business owners to stay in the game, especially when they could be incredibly frustrated in the stage of trial and error and experimenting?
Yeah, I think it is doing your research first. So speaking to those other business owners, new marketing initiatives or methods that may have worked for them, and then obviously having you think, is that relevant for my business? And then putting a time budget down to say, right, well, and asking again, how long did you test that for? And often we need to allow more time than what we think. So just being patient and putting that time frame down and then just letting it run and not chasing the next shiny object. I think it comes back to that discipline piece.
Yeah. What are your recommendations about outsourcing the marketing pieces? So I know you're a big, huge delegator. I have read just some things on your website. We chatted when I was a guest on yours. Should the business owner be doing the marketing, or should they be just monitoring the data and making decisions about the marketing?
I think long-term, the business owner should be clambering up the org chart and getting out of the business. That adds the greatest value to the business. But particularly as you're starting out and you're growing, the owner, I believe, should still own the marketing corner for quite some time and then bring someone in-house. You might start with using some external agencies, but it can be hard to find good agencies. But I think medium to long term, you should build out your own marketing team, and the owner usually, in most circumstances, should be leading that corner until you get the business big enough that you can hire in, for example, a marketing manager.
Yeah. And for those that, whether you're hiring a marketing manager or consultants, what I hear often is, how do I know they're doing what they should be doing? How do I know that this is actually going to be working? I have a feeling I know how you're going to answer it, but I'd love to get your opinion on how does a business owner who does not have expertise in marketing confidently make the right hire in those situations?
Yeah, that's a great question, Amber. And that comes back to one of the key habits that I drill into business owners, which is professional development. So that is, I do over 12 hours a week at the moment of professional development. That's mainly listening to podcasts and audio books. And it's when I'm driving around town, cleaning the house or shooting hoops in the sun. So you can fit it in, every owner can. But I'm surprised at how little professional development owners actually do. And marketing should be one of those key pillars of their learning. So listening to the great marketing books and podcasts and webinars, people, for example, like Neil Patel, find those marketing people that resonate with you and are experts. Another great guest we had on our podcast, Mark Ritson, was a marketing professor, and he's got an awesome online course called the Mini MBA in Marketing. He's got one also called the Mini MBA in Brand Management. So doing those kind of courses and listening to audiobooks and podcasts when you've got that dead time expands your thinking, gives you heaps of tips, and will make the owner armed with more information about being able to spot whether someone in a marketing role is actually good or not and performing.
Yeah. Okay. So I was actually shocked. That is not how I thought you were going to answer that. I think that's a great answer. I thought you were going to say, go back to the data and watch the data to see if it's working or not working, right? Once they say, okay, I can do this for you and this for you. Once somebody gets hired and the data's not being tracked, you don't know what they're doing for you. So yeah, I'm
There's
glad you
definitely
answered the way
that.
you did, but I'm pretty sure that's why data's number one on
Yeah.
your flywheel.
It is absolutely, and also in the ebook, we talk also again about building that habit of professional development. It can just be half an hour a day, 2.5 hours a week. It's not that much time, but stuffing your brain with new ideas and data, so you actually have credible data to track and then measure against. The only way you're going to get that is by learning and listening. So that's the key thing that we impress on business owners, is to up your professional development consumption.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have for myself, I find joy in the business. I love being a business owner, but when I think of the woman I am today, 12 years later after running a business, like I'm so grateful for the growth. It pushes you, not just in the everyday challenges, but the opportunity or the reason to consume this information and be knowledgeable about so many different things. My why was that I wanted a successful business, but the journey was all this growth and knowledge over the years.
Yeah.
And my style is to jump into a specific topic and kind of go super, super deep into it until I feel like I've wrapped my head around it. And then obviously apply it, but then I'm on to the next thing, right? So I'm not learning marketing for 10 years or 5 years. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm ready to change things up in the business with marketing. And so I'll jump back in and see, what are people doing? What are they talking about? What's the best of the best ideas? And I just say that because, you're very purposeful with your knowledge. I just don't want people to say, oh, I'm just going to consume a bunch of information. You took action. You take action with that knowledge. You have these businesses that you're, you know, um, able to execute this 12 hours of personal development on.
Yeah, and another point on that is also talking to other business owners to get their experience and what's worked for them and ideas. And in the ebook, I wrote about a very personal story. My ex-wife, when we were in Melbourne before we moved to London, we went and visited one of her good friends, and her husband was a builder, and he had just started a business with a business partner that built pergolas or gazebos, those little outdoor undercover things. Here in Australia, they were in Melbourne. They just launched in Sydney. They had the rights in Australia to use the colour blonde material, which is on the roof. And as I always do when I'm talking business with other business owners, one of the first questions I ask is, "Oh, how do you get all your leads? How do you market?"
Mm-hmm.
And he went on to say that it's a funny story that our marketing manager pretty much rocks in every day, puts his feet up on the kitchen desk and just reads the paper, because when he came into the business, they were doing these marketing initiatives, and he had a look at them and said, well, obviously we need to improve the ROI we're getting on this. So he went about exactly what we talk about in the ebook, testing a lot of different things. So until they stumbled upon the one thing that brought in most of their leads, and then they stuck with that. So they used to have the physical pergolas in shopping centres, and so they'd have someone there handing out flyers, annoying people as they walk past. And so he went about testing different things, and what they found was not putting the big, bulky physical pergolas in the shopping centres manned with a person worked, as well as a beautiful colour banner. It was just hung from, the first level in the shopping centre, and they'd pay a uni student $50 a week to go and move that banner to the next shopping centre, etc. And that actually brought them in more leads, more qualified leads, than having someone there handing out flyers. So he just tracked the data, went and tested different ideas, and then kept what works and doubled down on it.
Oh, I love that word. I use that all the time. When we want to talk about being efficient or productive, doubling down on what's working. I always have my clients answer what's working before we ask the question of what do I want to start? Because you'll get the biggest return, just not only a personal time investment, but obviously the wins if you're already using what you know works. I even shared it on your podcast about how my profitability increased tremendously after I was gone through all these years of experimenting, because when you're experimenting with marketing, it's expensive because you're not, all those things that didn't work, you're not getting those good ratios.
That's
So
right.
you're sinking money in a lot of different places to experiment. And so to find the thing that works, how do you just put gasoline on it? Whether that's money, time, another person on your team to make that expand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you said on the podcast we did that your profit margin is something like 70%, which is phenomenal. So being able to find things that work, stick with them. Again, it can be hard because we love trying new things as entrepreneurs. But another thing I think that could help is if you've got a team member, even a junior marketing assistant or someone that's part-time on the marketing in the business, you give them most of the responsibility. So you're less tempted to start switching things up and changing things, and they can run the course with new marketing issues and see what's working.
Yeah, I'd have to say, while I'm a pretty consistent person in my business by nature, having someone on my team that's specifically a content manager, right? That role, I saw a need for filling that role in my company really early, has allowed us to stay consistent through and through, no matter how busy I get or if I'm not in the business or I'm sick. Like, you got a team member that their only job is to consistently go through the to-do list of marketing and all the strategies. And I think that that has made a huge difference. And I just wanted to give that out as a tip as well, is that, if you're getting in your own way because you have mindset issues, or you self-sabotage, or you talk yourself out of making those calls, then it might be worth putting money into a person that's their job and they actually enjoy doing it, because they'll be consistent at it. The question here is how can you be consistent in marketing for the business? And if you can't be, the business still needs it, then hire it.
Yep, totally agree. Yep.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. So are there any other things that you would like to share with us about marketing for small business that you've learned over the years that our listeners can take away and help their own marketing strategies?
Well, I think being very clear on your avatar, who your perfect client or customer is really important. I certainly started out in with the web design development company. We were trying to be all things to all people, and it wasn't until we started to really clarify who we can help the most and get a good the best return on, that it allowed our marketing material to be a lot more focused and speak to that avatar.
Yeah.
So I think doing that work, there's a lot of great books out there and material. I highly recommend April Dunford's books, So Obviously Awesome, which is about positioning your brand or business, and her second book called Sales Pitch also. And she's got a podcast which I listen to regularly. So I highly recommend getting very clear on what does your perfect customer look like, define that avatar, and then make sure you get all your positioning and your messaging right. So another great book or resource, once you've done the positioning work, on the messaging, is Donald Miller's Building a Story Brand.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know about a lot of your other businesses, but the business that is behind this podcast, Grow a Small Business, when I'm on your website, it's very clear who you serve, but you also have a very streamlined service offering where it's rinse and repeat, where you're, I'm sure, improving upon it, but it means that you're getting your messaging and marketing down, your avatar down. And I'm assuming that really simplifies that whole process for you to serve the right person at a high level.
yeah, absolutely. And that's another trap I think business owners fall into, putting too many products or offers out there. So really slimming it down, because consumers or clients will suffer paralysis from trying to make a decision. There's been, I think it was the jelly test where they had, in a supermarket, they had, I think it was like 20 different jellies that offer. One morning, the next morning, they culled it down to 6 jellies. And while the foot traffic was less for the lower number of offers there, the conversion rate was much higher, and overall sales were much higher by having a smaller amount of products on offer. So I think, getting clear on what are the one or two ways that we can help a client or a customer, and not trying to offer too much, and just because people are busy, they don't want to overthink things, so they'll just move on if there's too much choice there for them.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to both of those being incredibly helpful in my own business. I think back to when I first started, and I knew that my area of expertise was productivity and time management. But let's be honest, anybody can use that, right? Whether you're a stay-at-home mom, you're a college student, you're a business owner, you're an employee. And so at first, I did not, I mean, at the very, very beginning, I did not niche down into business owners specifically. And once I had done that, it felt like it was so much easier on so many accounts. And the second thing was while I was experimenting with multiple marketing initiatives, it felt overwhelming. It was messy. And with all the marketing initiatives, we were also trying a lot of products and a lot of false starts and a lot of things that didn't work out. And so when I slimmed down and curated it down to 2 offerings and cleaned up the website and knocked out all this stuff, there's some, like, am I doing the right thing? And when I just pulled the Band-Aid off and did it, I've never looked back. It is so much easier to run the business. It's easier to have conversations about your services. It's easier to talk to people because you're not trying to figure out, well, which service of 10 should I talk to them about? It's 2. I have 2 offerings.
Yeah, absolutely. And this comes back to my main point about building that professional development habit. I wouldn't have learnt those key lessons unless I'd listened to books like April Dunford's 2 books or Donald Miller's books or Seth Godin books, etc. So really consuming more marketing content and concepts for you to understand the principles of what effective marketing is I think the first place you need to start. Even before you take on a consultant or you hire your first marketing person, the owner needs to understand this corner of the business because it's one of the 2 main levers of value that we believe adds the greatest value to a small business. The other one's people, hiring A players and leading and managing them well. But marketing is so powerful. So I don't understand why small business owners just neglect that and don't invest time learning and swatting up on key concepts.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to, as we close out, there was a couple things you said: email, SEO, and social. Email, 100%. SEO, got it. Even SEO changes quite a bit on what works and doesn't work with Google. What are your opinions about social media and building your brand on somebody else's platform and with so many of the algorithms changing? Do you have any opinions on that for business owners?
Yeah, I have a harsh opinion on socials. I haven't done much on it myself. We do a little bit, but from what I've read, again, coming back to that habit, Neil Patel has a lot of data. He's got almost 1,000 team members in his business. And I follow him on LinkedIn on his email list. And every day he sends a short piece either on LinkedIn or email. And they do a lot of testing and have data behind what he says. And doing social media marketing is getting harder by the day, as we all know. It's something like between 2 and 5% of your followers will see an organic post. So hence why we are so big on saying build that email list and communicate something of value to them regularly because you're guaranteed to get in their inbox. Whereas social media marketing, with such a low percentage actually on your dropping into your audience's feed, just means it's a volume game. You've got to really build that following. So the key principle is have valuable content that you're putting out there on socials. And I still think it's worthwhile putting your brand out there, but it's a volume game, I think, in this day and age.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely have my own opinions about social. I have been, when you talk about like personal development or, learning things, I've been diving into Web3 and decentralized versus centralized, information and being the product, which is what social media is. I think social media is on its way out. And I think that we're going to see a huge change in marketing and what Web3 has to bring to that. And it's just a whole paradigm shift of, we are the product that Facebook or Instagram or whatever other social media platform is selling. People are getting tired of it and it's not working as effectively. So I do think we're going to have a big disruption with Web3.
Yeah, the other thing with social, I think, is that it's fun to do and it feels like it's working, but you don't know unless you track the data and look at, another key point around marketing is asking your clients or customers when they become a client or customer, how did you hear about us? And tracking that data, even just in a spreadsheet. We've someone that's just been through our program. She's got an online business, subscription business for, she has healthy dog food. And the heart of her model obviously is subscription. So, and marketing is so key. And coming back to that LTV to CAC ratio, she now knows her numbers. She's been tracking it over a year now, and she can see what different marketing channels. She'll have a marketing idea. I say, that's a great idea. Let's test it. Let's track the right data and let's see if it's going to work. But again, with the social media, if people are saying how they heard about you is through socials and you can attribute that accurately, then it may be working for your type of business. But just because it feels fun and it feels like it's working, you need to lean on the data, not just things that are fun to do.
I agree. And I did not ask the question because I'm familiar with the numbers, or the data, but can you just share with us what those ratios are and a little explanation in case our listeners haven't heard?
Yeah, so with online marketing, there's things like click-through rate, cost per lead, etc. But the only number that matters on that front is CAC, customer acquisition cost. So I spent $1,000 last month on a paid online ads, whether that be social or Google, and I got 10 customers. So my customer acquisition cost is $100 per customer. And then understanding your lifetime value, how long someone will stay with you, and what's the gross profit, not the sales, but the gross profit that you're going to make from someone. So for example, that subscription pet food business, if their lifetime value is $1,500 gross profit over the time that the average customer will stay with that business, then if it's a 3-to-1 ratio, the owner can spend up to $500 to acquire a new customer because they're $1,000 in front after you take the $500 CAC off the $1,500 gross profit. So as long as you can fund that customer acquisition cost, it's just a money printing machine.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much for these strategies and going through your flywheel with us. Before we close out, if you can share with our listeners where we can find out more about you, your podcast, and your program.
Yeah, thanks, Amber. growsmallbusiness.com is our website. We've got our weekly podcast there. We have 3 episodes that go live a week. Later this year, we'll hit 600 episodes. We've been doing our podcast for about 4.5 years. Absolutely loving it, learning a lot, having a lot of great guests on like yourself, and picking up a lot of books. I was saying to someone just yesterday that the 5 books in my top 10 business books I only discovered in the last 4.5 years from doing the podcast because other owners told me about it, and I could not believe I had not heard of these books, some of which have been around for 20 years. And so I really enjoy it. That's I highly recommend jumping on our website, having a look at our business transformation program. If you've got at least 5 team members, then our program may be able to help you grow to the next level, as we like to say, grow your business with ease so the owner can live the lifestyle they signed up for. So there's more than half our teachings in the courses and the one-on-one coaching is around people, because getting owners to let go and delegate and, as I said before, clamber up the org chart. But eventually the end goal is to just be a shareholder, not working in the business, because that adds the greatest value to a business if you're ever going to sell it, to prove that the owner doesn't need to work in the business. So that's something that I encourage your audience to have a look at.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Troy. Thanks for a great conversation.
Thanks, Amber.
I have loved having you listen to the Small Business Straight Talk podcast, and I sure hope you found the conversation with Troy to be insightful and encouraging you to take action regarding your marketing. What great advice that it is going to take persistence and consistency and testing to find out what's going to work for you and your business with regards to marketing. No change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on today's conversation with Troy, what is one specific action you can take to improve marketing in your business? Before we close out, I want to invite you to schedule a discovery call if you are looking for support in your business. If you're looking for coaching, accountability, if you're looking for help with time management, improving your productivity, making that next hire, leading your team, or making strategic decisions that will help you level up your business, then I think we should talk. All it takes is for you to schedule a call for us to chat to find out if that's the next right move for you and your business. Head on over to amberdelagarza.com to learn more and schedule a call today. And if you enjoyed today's interview, be sure to share it with another business owner. Don't keep this podcast a secret. And if you're new here, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss another episode. So that's my Straight Talk for today. Until next time, have a productive week.